Admiral Cathax of the Zenorian Empire stood at the command bridge of the Celestial Sovereignty, his primary sensory appendages twitching with anticipation. The massive exploration vessel, pride of the Zenorian fleet, hung in the darkness of space at the edge of what the primitives called the solar system. His mission was simple: assess the military capability of this emerging species called humans and establish diplomatic relations, if they proved worthy. The Zenorians had conquered 12 galaxies, their technological supremacy unchallenged for millennia. This backwater system should have been an easy addition to their expanding empire. Yet something about the preliminary scans troubled the Admiral. Where there should have been primitive orbital stations, he detected sophisticated energy signatures. Where there should have been basic defense satellites, he found complex networks of quantum-linked sensors. High Commander, his second-in-command, Sub-Admiral Vexera, approached with a data crystal. Our deep space probes have completed their analysis of the human defense grid. The results are unexpected. Cathax absorbed the crystal's data through his neural interface, his outer membrane rippling with confusion. The humans had achieved quantum shielding centuries before the projected timeline. Their weapon systems, while appearing crude, operated on principles the Zenorian Science Division couldn't fully comprehend. Impossible, Cathax muttered, his translator converting his biochemical signals into standard galactic speech. Their civilization is barely 3,000 cycles old. They shouldn't have mastered gravitational manipulation for at least another millennium. There's more, High Commander. Vexera's appendages twisted in the Zenorian gesture of deep concern. We've detected unusual patterns in their communication networks. They seem to be aware of our presence, yet they haven't initiated contact or raised their defense systems. Cathax moved to the holographic display dominating the bridge's center. Earth rotated slowly before him, a blue jewel wrapped in layers of technology that shouldn't exist. They're studying us, he realized, his outer membrane darkening with understanding. Just as we study them. The diplomatic mission had suddenly become far more complex. Standard Zenorian protocol dictated a show of force when encountering new species, a demonstration of superiority to ensure proper respect during negotiations. But something told Cathax that humans wouldn't respond well to such tactics. Launch the diplomatic vessel, he commanded after several moments of contemplation. Minimal escort, weapons powered down. Let's see how they respond to a peaceful approach. As the sleek diplomatic ship detached from the Celestial Sovereignty, Cathax noticed something odd on the tactical display. The human defense grid was shifting, but not in any pattern their military algorithms could recognize. It appeared random, chaotic even, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was purpose behind the movement. The diplomatic vessel crossed the system's outer boundary, its signal broadcasting peace intentions on all frequencies. The humans' response came not in words but in action. Suddenly, hundreds of small ships materialized from what appeared to be empty space, surrounding the diplomatic vessel in a perfect sphere formation. Incredible, Vexera whispered. They've developed functional cloaking technology using only gravitational distortion. Our sensors read them as natural spacetime anomalies. Before Cathax could respond, a transmission cut through their communications network, bypassing all encryption as if it didn't exist. A human voice, translated perfectly into Zenorian biochemical signals, filled the bridge. Greetings, Admiral Cathax of the Zenorian Empire. We've been expecting you. While we appreciate the peaceful approach, we must inform you that your previous probes into our defense systems have been noted. We are willing to establish diplomatic relations, but first, a demonstration of mutual respect is required. Cathax felt his primary heart skip a pulse. The humans hadn't just detected their stealth probes, they traced them back to their source and identified him personally. Proceed, he responded, curiosity overtaking caution. Your empire's policy of technological superiority demonstrations is known to us. We propose an alternative. A joint scientific expedition to neutral space. Share knowledge rather than force. Admiral, prove that the Zenorian Empire can adapt to new ways of thinking. The bridge fell silent. In 12,000 cycles of expansion, no species had ever countered their first contact protocols with such a proposal. The humans weren't acting like a young species should. They showed neither fear nor aggression, just calculated confidence. An interesting proposal, Cathax responded carefully. However, our protocols. The human interrupted, something that would have been a grave insult from any other species. Your protocols were designed for civilizations that develop along predictable paths. Humanity walked a different road, Admiral. We turned our weaknesses into strengths, our divisions into diversity, our conflicts into innovation. The question isn't whether we're worthy of diplomatic relations with the Zenorian Empire. It's whether the Empire is ready for diplomatic relations with us. Cathax felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. The humans had outmaneuvered them before negotiations had even begun. Their technology violated every development model the Empire had established. Their behavior defied every first contact prediction. Very well, he finally responded. We accept your proposal, but know that any hostile action will be met with the full might of the Zenorian Empire. The human's response carried what his translator identified as amusement. Understood, Admiral. Though you might want to run a level 5 diagnostic on your ship's quantum core. The harmonic frequency is off by 0.03%. Small detail, but it could cause problems during long-range jumps. The transmission ended, leaving Cathax staring at his second-in-command in stunned silence. A quick diagnostic confirmed the human's observation, an imperceptible flaw that even their advanced systems hadn't detected. Send word to the Imperial Council, Cathax ordered, his voice carrying a new tone of respect. The humans are not what we expected. They're something else entirely. And they just might change everything we thought we knew about the galaxy. As the message was prepared, Cathax watched the human ships maintain their perfect formation around the diplomatic vessel. They had achieved in centuries what had taken his people millennia, developed technologies that worked on principles the Empire hadn't even considered, and most importantly, they had chosen cooperation over confrontation, while making it clear they were ready for either path. The first contact protocols would need to be rewritten. The humans had seen to that in less than one standard cycle. And somehow, Cathax suspected this was just the beginning of the surprises this young species had in store for the galaxy. 3 months after the first contact, Admiral Cathax stood before the Imperial Council's holographic projection, his outer membrane gray with concern. The joint scientific expedition had revealed disturbing truths about human capabilities, and now the Council was making the catastrophic mistake. The humans are not to be underestimated, he insisted, his biochemical signals sharp with urgency. Their technological development doesn't follow any pattern we've encountered in 12 galaxies. A military solution would be. Your concern is noted, Admiral. Supreme Counselor Zexthor interrupted, their form shimmering with impatience. But the decision is made. The humans' refusal to share their gravitational manipulation technology is an insult to the Empire. They must be taught their place. Cathax felt his secondary hearts sink. The Imperial battle fleet would arrive within days, 3,000 ships strong, carrying enough firepower to reduce entire solar systems to cosmic dust. Yet his experience with humans told him this would not end as the Council expected. The massive fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the solar system, a show of force meant to awe and intimidate. Cathax watched from the celestial sovereignty as the ships formed the traditional Zenorian combat sphere, an unstoppable formation that had broken countless civilizations. The humans' response was puzzling. Their ships, rather than mounting a defense, appeared to scatter randomly. Primitive, chaotic. At least, that's what the Council members watching through Quantum Link would think. High Commander, Vexra called out, her appendages twitching. The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. A familiar voice filled the bridge. The same diplomatic officer from First Contact. Admiral Cathax, we know you voted against this action. What follows is not your fault. To the Imperial Council, you have 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet. This is your only warning. The Council's response was predictable. The order to advance. What happened next would be studied in military academies across 12 galaxies for centuries to come. The seemingly random pattern of human ships suddenly made sense. They had positioned themselves at precise gravitational points throughout the system, points that the Zenorian sensors had dismissed as natural phenomena. Energy spike, Vexra shouted, massive gravitational distortions forming. The human ships activated their devices simultaneously. Space itself seemed to fold and twist. Massive corridors of warped gravity appeared throughout the Zenorian formation, tearing ships from their carefully planned positions. The perfect sphere collapsed into chaos, but that was just the beginning. From the gravitational corridors emerged thousands of smaller craft, ships so tiny they had been dismissed as debris. Each one carried what the humans called a singularity bomb, crude but devastating weapons that created miniature, temporary black holes. By the first sun, Kithax whispered as he watched the impossible unfold. The humans weren't just fighting. They were rewriting the rules of space combat. Their small ships moved through the gravitational corridors with precision, striking at weak points that shouldn't have been detectable. The Council's mighty fleet found itself fragmented, unable to maintain formation within the twisted space. Traditional Zenorian combat doctrine fell apart in the face of an enemy that turned the fundamental forces of the universe into weapons. High Commander, Vexra's voice carried shock. The humans, they're not targeting our weapons or engines. They're disabling our quantum communications first. They're isolating each ship before attacking. Kithax understood the brilliance of the strategy. Without quantum communication, the fleet couldn't coordinate. Each ship became an island, forced to fight alone against an enemy that moved like water through the cracks in space. The battle lasted less than 2 hours. When it ended, half the Imperial fleet had been disabled, not destroyed, but stripped of their ability to fight. The other half remained trapped in pockets of twisted space, unable to escape or assist their comrades. The human diplomat's voice returned, calm as ever. Admiral Kithax, your ship remains untouched because you understood what your council did not. We are transmitting coordinates for the recovery of your disabled vessels. All crew members are unharmed, though some may be disoriented from gravitational exposure. Kithax moved to respond, but the human continued. Please inform your council that while we regret this demonstration of force, we will not submit to intimidation. We did not destroy your ships because we desire peace, but make no mistake, we could have. The Empire must understand. Humanity will not be conquered. As rescue operations began, Kithax received a private transmission from the human diplomat. Admiral, we know the Council will not accept this defeat easily. They will analyze this battle, attempt to counter our tactics. Please convey this message. What they saw today was a fraction of our capability. We developed these defenses because we had to. Our history is written in warfare and survival. We chose peace not from weakness, but from wisdom. The message ended, leaving Kithax to contemplate the full implications of what he had witnessed. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had shattered the Empire's assumptions about warfare itself. They had taken principles of physics that Zenorian scientists considered theoretical and turned them into weapons. As he prepared his report to the Council, Kithax added a personal observation. The humans demonstrate a unique combination of technological innovation and strategic restraint. They could have destroyed our fleet but chose to disable it instead. This is not the action of a species that fears us, but one that hopes to avoid unnecessary conflict. I strongly recommend a complete reevaluation of our approach to human relations. The battle would come to be known as the Gravity Dance in human records, a name that captured both the elegance and terror of their tactical innovation. For the Zenorian Empire, it marked the beginning of a fundamental change. For the first time, in 12,000 cycles, they had encountered a species that didn't just resist their might, it rendered it obsolete. In the aftermath of the Gravity Dance, Admiral Kithax found himself in an unprecedented position. The Imperial Council, shaken by their defeat, had appointed him to lead a comprehensive study of human civilization. His ship, the Celestial Sovereignty, now orbited Earth as part of a diplomatic arrangement. A chance to understand the species that had humbled the mighty Zenorian Empire. Their history makes no sense, Sub-Admiral Vexra reported, her neural interfaces swimming with data. By all logic, they should have destroyed themselves centuries ago. Their civilization developed through constant conflict, yet each war pushed them to greater innovations. They turned weapons into tools, rivals into allies, and defeat into opportunity. Thex studied the holographic display of human history. Unlike the careful, planned expansion of the Zenorian Empire, humanity's growth resembled a chaotic explosion. They had gone from primitive atmospheric flight to quantum engineering in less than 2 centuries, a pace that violated every developmental model in the Imperial database. "Show me their response to the Arcturian plague," Thex commanded, focusing on a particular incident that caught his attention. The holographic display shifted, showing how humans had faced a deadly pathogen that had wiped out 3 other civilizations. What he saw defied explanation. Instead of following standard quarantine protocols, humans had chosen to maintain their interconnected society. They developed vaccines at unprecedented speeds, shared research freely across their planet, and adapted their entire civilization to function under new constraints. Where other species had fractured under such pressure, humanity had grown stronger. Their adaptability isn't just technological, Cathax observed. It's woven into their very nature. They expect things to go wrong and plan accordingly. A human diplomatic delegation was due to arrive shortly. The Empire had requested the technological exchange, a formal sharing of knowledge. But Cathax had begun to suspect that technology wasn't the real source of human power. The human ship that docked with the Celestial Sovereignty was deliberately modest, a small vessel that seemed almost primitive compared to Zenorian engineering. Ambassador Sarah Chen emerged, accompanied by a diverse team of human experts. Admiral Cathax. She greeted him with a gesture that perfectly mimicked Zenorian respect signs. "I understand you've been studying us. Have you found what you're looking for?" "That's the puzzle, Ambassador," Cathax replied. "The more we learn, the less we understand. Your species seems to thrive on uncertainty, even embrace it. It contradicts every principle of civilization we know." Ambassador Chen smiled, a human expression Cathax had learned to associate with complex meanings. "Perhaps that's because you're looking for a system, Admiral. Humanity doesn't follow a system. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. Our strength isn't in having the right answers. It's in never stopping our search for better ones." The diplomatic meeting that followed was unlike any in Imperial records. Instead of formal technology exchange protocols, the humans proposed joint research projects. Rather than sharing weapon specifications, they suggested collaborative defense exercises. "You're not here to learn our secrets," Cathax realized halfway through the meeting. "You're trying to teach us something else entirely." "Perceptive, Admiral," Chen responded. "The Council wants our gravitational manipulation technology. But that's just a tool. What makes humanity dangerous or valuable? Depending on your perspective, it's how we think. We don't see technology as an end goal, but as a means to solve problems. Any problem." To demonstrate, she presented a simple puzzle, a Zenorian logic cube that children used for basic education. Instead of solving it conventionally, she broke it apart and reassembled it into something new. The cube still worked, but now it operated on principles that no Zenorian would have considered. "This is what terrifies your council," she explained. "Not our weapons or our shields, but the fact that we'll take apart everything we know and rebuild it differently if that's what survival requires. We don't follow paths. We make them." The implication struck Cathax like a quantum surge. The Empire had spent millennia perfecting its systems, establishing order across 12 galaxies. Humanity represented something entirely different: controlled chaos, perpetual innovation, endless adaptation. "Your gravity weapons," he said slowly. "They weren't developed for war, were they? Originally. They were meant for space mining. When we detected your probes, we repurposed them, just like we repurposed solar flare shields into stealth technology and asteroid deflection systems into our defense grid. Everything can be something else if you look at it differently enough. As the meeting concluded, Fax prepared his report to the council. But for the first time in his long career, he found himself struggling to convey the essence of what he had learned. How do you explain to an empire built on order and control that their greatest threat wasn't a superior enemy, but one that refused to follow the rules of engagement? In his private logs, he wrote, "The humans have not surpassed us technologically. They've transcended the very concept of technological progression. They don't walk the path of advancement. They jump between paths, create new ones, or ignore paths altogether. The empire must understand, we're not facing a different kind of civilization. We're facing a civilization that constantly reinvents what civilization means." Ambassador Chen's parting words would haunt him for cycles to come. "Admiral, your empire sees the universe as a puzzle to be solved. We see it as clay to be shaped. That's not just our strength, it's our nature. And nature, as you're learning, can be quite persistent." 6 months after the diplomatic exchange, Admiral Cathax received an emergency transmission that would reshape the galaxy. The Swarm, a destructive force that had lurked at the edges of known space, had finally breached Imperial borders. Their biomechanical ships were consuming everything in their path, and the Empire's mighty fleets were falling back in disarray. The council chamber was in chaos when Cathax arrived via quantum projection. Supreme Counselor Zexthor's normally pristine membrane was mottled with stress patterns. "The Swarm has adapted to our quantum weaponry," Zexthor announced, their voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "They've consumed 3 border systems already. Our standard tactics are useless. They learn, they evolve, they become stronger with each engagement." Cathax felt his primary heart race as he processed the tactical data. The Swarm wasn't just winning. They were assimilating Xenorian technology, turning it against its creators. Centuries of Imperial military doctrine were crumbling before an enemy that played by no rules and followed no patterns. Then he realized he'd seen this before. "We need to contact Earth," Cathax declared, interrupting the council's debate. "The humans specialize in exactly this type of warfare." Preposterous. Several council members objected simultaneously. "We cannot show such weakness to a lesser species." But Zexthor raised an appendage for silence, their membrane shifting to a thoughtful hue. "Explain, Admiral. The humans don't just adapt, they thrive on adaptation itself. They turned our own gravity against us because that's what they do. They take problems and reshape them into solutions. The Swarm evolves. Humans evolve faster. The Swarm learns. Humans learn differently." Within hours, Ambassador Chen was standing before the Imperial Council, her hologram steady and composed despite the gravity of the situation. She listened to their explanation without interruption, her expression unreadable. "You're not just asking for help," she finally said. "You're asking us to join a war that could determine the fate of 12 galaxies. This isn't a simple decision." "We understand the magnitude," Zexthor began, but Chen raised her hand. "No, I don't think you do. Humanity has been preparing for something like this since we first looked at the stars. We knew that in an infinite universe, we'd eventually face an existential threat. The real question isn't whether we'll help. It's whether you're ready for how we'll help." What followed was unprecedented in Imperial history. Human ships began arriving through previously unknown spatial corridors, ships unlike anything the Empire had ever seen. They weren't the elegant vessels of their defense fleet, but massive, brutally efficient machines built for a single purpose: adaptation warfare. "These are our Prometheus-class vessels," Chen explained as the human fleet assembled. "Each one is essentially a mobile factory, capable of analyzing enemy technology and developing countermeasures in real time. We don't just fight the Swarm, we outswarm them." The first engagement occurred at the Helios boundary. The swarm, fresh from consuming an imperial colony, encountered something they couldn't process: human unpredictability. While Xenorian ships fought in precise formations, human vessels seemed to operate in controlled chaos. Cathax watched in awe from his command bridge as the battle unfolded. The human ships were constantly changing, literally transforming mid-battle as their adaptive systems analyzed and countered swarm tactics. When the swarm developed an immunity to energy weapons, the humans switched to gravitational weapons. When the swarm adapted to those, the humans introduced weapons that bent the laws of physics in ways that made even veteran Xenorian scientists uncomfortable. But the true turning point came when the humans unveiled their master strategy. Their ships weren't just fighting the swarm, they were infecting them. Each piece of destroyed human technology contained self-replicating nanites programmed with a simple directive: evolve faster than the enemy. You see, Admiral. Chen's voice came through as they watched the swarm ships begin to turn on each other. The swarm's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. They evolved through consumption. So we gave them something they couldn't help but consume, something that would evolve inside them. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the remaining swarm ships were not destroyed but transformed, their biomechanical systems reprogrammed by human nanites. The threat wasn't just defeated, it was converted into a defense system. In the aftermath, Cathax found himself alone with Ambassador Chen on the observation deck of the Celestial Sovereignty. Your solution, he said carefully, it's not just about the swarm, is it? Chen smiled that complex human smile. The Empire needed to understand something fundamental about humanity. Admiral, we don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to thrive. The swarm showed you what raw evolution looks like. We showed you what guided evolution can achieve. And in doing so, you've changed the balance of power in 12 galaxies. No, Admiral. We've eliminated the need for that kind of power balance altogether. The Empire can continue to rule through force and order if it chooses, but we've demonstrated a different path, one where adaptation and cooperation create something stronger than any empire. As Cathax prepared his report to the Council, he realized that this wasn't just a turning point in the war against the swarm. It was the moment when the galaxy's oldest empire had to confront a fundamental truth. Their way of existing in the universe was not the only way, and perhaps not even the best way. Humanity hadn't just saved the empire, they had shown it a new way to evolve. 10 cycles had passed since the Swarm War, and Admiral Cathax stood before the newly constructed Galactic Assembly on Earth, a structure that embodied the profound changes that had reshaped known space. The building itself was a marvel of human Xenorian engineering, its quantum-locked spires defying conventional physics while maintaining perfect geometric harmony. Looking back, Cathax addressed the assembled representatives from across 12 galaxies. We thought we were teaching humanity how to exist in galactic society. Instead, they taught us how to evolve beyond our own limitations. The chamber, filled with species that would have been mortal enemies a decade ago, listened in respectful silence. Among them sat Supreme Counselor Zexthor, their membrane now permanently marked with the colors of change, a controversial but meaningful adoption of human symbolic practices. The integration of human adaptive principles into imperial systems wasn't just a technological revolution, Cathax continued. It represented a fundamental shift in how we understand civilization itself. He gestured to the holographic display showing the transformed regions of space. Where once there had been rigid borders and military checkpoints, now there were flowing zones of cultural exchange. The former swarm vessels, reprogrammed by human nanites, had become the backbone of an interstellar rapid response network, protecting all species equally. Ambassador Chen, now High Commissioner Chen of the Joint Adaptive Council, took the platform next. Time had added silver to her hair, but her eyes carried the same intensity that had first captured Cathax's attention years ago. We didn't set out to change the Empire, she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. We simply refused to accept that any problem was unsolvable. When faced with an immovable object, Humanity's instinct isn't to stop or go around. It's to question why the object needs to be immovable in the first place. The evidence of this philosophy was everywhere. Former imperial warships now carried massive biological computers, their quantum cores supplemented by organic processing that could adapt to new challenges. Xenorian cities, once models of rigid perfection, had begun incorporating human-inspired dynamic architecture that evolved with their inhabitants' needs. But the most significant change was in the younger generations. Young Xenorians had embraced human concepts of creative problem-solving, while human children grew up learning Xenorian principles of harmony and order. The result was a new kind of thinking that surpassed both parent cultures. The true power of humanity, Cthax observed, wasn't in their weapons or their technology. It was in their ability to make others see possibility where we saw only obstacles. They didn't conquer the empire. They inspired it to conquer its own limitations. A small commotion at the chamber's entrance drew attention. A group of human and Xenorian children entered, students from the First Joint Species Academy. They moved with the fluid grace of Xenorians, but carried themselves with human confidence, their projects displaying impossible combinations of both cultures' technologies. This, Chen gestured to the children, is our real victory, not the defeat of the swarm, not the transformation of the empire, but the creation of a future where the question isn't whose way is right, but what new way can we discover together. Cthax felt his membrane shift to colors of deep satisfaction as he watched the young ones demonstrate their innovations. One pair had created a device that could translate not just language but cultural context across species. Another had developed a way to make quantum entanglement work with organic neural networks, allowing for empathetic connections across vast distances. We stand at the beginning of something unprecedented, Cthax concluded. The Empire spent millennia perfecting a single path to the stars. Humanity showed us that the universe has infinite paths, and that the best ones are often those we forge ourselves. As the assembly concluded, Cthax found himself in the observatory with Chen, just as they had been after the Swarm War. Below them, Earth and its sprawling orbital installations sparkled like jewels against the void. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Chen asked, watching a group of ships, human, Xenorian, and hybrid designs, perform a complicated quantum dance as part of the celebration. "No," Cthax admitted. "When I first entered this system, I thought we were here to evaluate a primitive species. Instead, we found ourselves being evaluated, and found wanting in ways we hadn't even considered possible. And now I understand what my first report to the Council failed to capture. Humanity's greatest achievement isn't technology or adaptation, or even survival. It's the ability to dream of better ways to exist, and then make those dreams real, not just for themselves, but for everyone they encounter." Chen smiled, watching a new star ignite in the distance, the first successful test of human Xenorian stellar engineering. "That's the thing about humans, Admiral. We never wanted to rule the stars. We just wanted to dance with them, and invite everyone else to join the dance." As they stood there, watching the cosmos unfold in ways neither of their species had imagined possible just 10 cycles ago, Cthax reflected on the warning he had once tried to give the Imperial Council about humans. He had been right about their potential for danger, but wrong about the nature of that danger. Humanity's true power wasn't in their ability to fight or resist or even adapt. It was in their ability to make others want to change, to grow, to evolve. They hadn't conquered the empire. They had done something far more profound. They had taught it how to dream.